Hey guys, welcome back to another DeltaMath tutorial. Today we're going to be taking a look at questions like this one. Now, the name of the section is Match the graph to the equation ax plus by equals c. Now, what is that? That's standard form for a line, right? Now, what we're given in problems like this is a question that looks like the one on the screen, where there is a graph, and then we want to choose an equation that fits it. The other option, which we're going to take a look at later in this video, is whenever you get an equation and four different graphs, and we want to, kind of do the reverse of this problem. But the big question is, how do we do it? Now, we could go through the whole process of converting standard form into slope-intercept form and looking at slopes and y-intercepts and all of that information. Or we can use another tool that we kind of have at our disposal. And I think it's an interesting one, so let's try it out in this video. Now that tool is Desmos, a graphing software. Now, I really like doing things like this because, in my own opinion, a lot of math is really about what sorts of resources and tools you're aware about that are at your disposal. It's really important to understand the algebra behind things, the mathematical reasoning, but it's also important to try to figure out how can I solve this problem, even if I may not know exactly how to do it. And that's something that a tool like Desmos, I think, does really well in these situations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to analyze this graph real quick. And then we are going to graph each of these four equations on Desmos and try to figure out if any of them have the exact same characteristics. So let's take a few notes about this graph. Well, the first thing I notice is that it has a positive slope, right? The line is going up. So I'm going to jot this down here. Positive slope. Oh, that's going off the screen. There we go. It has a positive slope. That's one big important thing. The next thing I'm going to notice is that this line is in quadrants 1, 2, and 3, right? This line does not touch quadrant 4 at all. That's an important characteristic about the line. So not in quadrant 4. And then there's one last important thing, and to be honest, this is probably the most important thing, but I like looking at these other things as well, and that's its x and y intercept. What's the x-intercept of this graph? Well, it looks like it's -9. And then what's the y-intercept? Where it crosses the y-axis. That's going to be 6. So I'm going to keep these pieces of information around so that whenever we look at the graphs of the four equations that are our options, we can figure out which one matches exactly. So I'm going to switch over to Desmos real quick. And what you'll notice is that I already have the four equations typed in. I just don't have the lines kind of turned on, so to say. And we're going to go through these one by one to see which one is correct. Let me go ahead and bring up the information we want to keep in mind so that we can kind of keep an eye on that. Let me move this graph all around a little bit first, though. Okay, that should be good. So let's look at this first one. Okay, well, it has a positive slope. That's good. It is not in quadrant 4 at all. That's also good. But does it have the correct x and y intercepts? Not quite. Its x-intercept is at -9. That's what we're looking for. But its y-intercept, look at it, we can't even see it on the screen, right? Its y-intercept is supposed to be 6. It's not. So this option is out. I'm just going to click the X here. Let's take a look at the next one. Right off the bat, we look at this and we see that has a negative slope, right? That line's going downhill, so to say. This option's out. It doesn't meet the first criteria. This one has a positive slope. Okay, so it meets that first criteria. But let's look at that second one. The second one says our original line was not in quadrant 4 at all. Where's this line going through? Quadrant 4. All of this area down in the bottom right-hand corner. This one's out. So process of elimination kind of tells us it should probably be this one, but let's check to make sure. So We see the slope is positive. That's good. It looks to me like it completely stays out of quadrant 4. And now let's check our intercepts. The x-intercept is at -9. Great. The y-intercept is at 6. That's exactly what we're looking for. So now we know this equation, -4x plus 6y equals 36, is our correct answer. Let's go back to DeltaMath and choose that option and submit. And, hey, we got it right. We got that green check mark. So, like I was saying, that's not the only type of problem that we sometimes see on these. We also can have problems that look like this, where it tells us, here's an equation, and here's 4 graphs. Which one matches the graph? Which one matches the equation? This is something we can do on Desmos as well. I'm going to take this equation, 4x plus 4y equals 20, graph it on Desmos, and see what we get. 4x plus 4y equals 20. It automatically graphs the line for me. I can see a couple of similar observations as we made to the last graph. It's going downhill, so we have a negative slope. That's one thing to keep in mind. It doesn't pass through quadrant 3. It's only going through 2, 1, and 4 there. And it has some intercepts. And it looks to me like the intercepts are, gosh, that's 5 on both of these, right? And if you're ever unsure about those intercepts, one cool thing that Desmos does is if you click on the line, it'll actually highlight these points, the intercepts. And if you click on them, then it shows you the coordinates there. So let's go back here and see what we can eliminate. Now, all of them are negative slopes, so that doesn't do a whole lot for us. One of these goes through quadrant 3. Now, we know that's not what we're looking for. Not supposed to go through quadrant 3. But let's take a look at those intercepts. If you recall, both the x and y intercept were 3. Well, of course, this one's out, because that's an x-intercept of like 20. And it looks like this one's out, because that's a y-intercept of like 20. But this option here, C, has a y-intercept of 5 and an x-intercept of 5. That's exactly what we're looking for. So it seems to me like C is likely the answer. Well, more than likely, right? Let's go ahead and submit our work. Answer the question as C here. And we got that one as well. So really, the big point of this is I want you guys to recognize that even if you're unsure about some of the processes we may have to use to answer the question in a more traditional manner, such as what DeltaMath is showing us here, where it's like, hey, plug in zeros to find your intercepts, or maybe convert it to slope-intercept form. We can use graphing softwares like Desmos or any other tools that we're comfortable with and familiar with to help us solve problems that may otherwise be really challenging. All right, guys, if you have any questions about this, feel free to leave it down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in another DeltaMath tutorial.